and welcome to another Cliff's List webinar interview. Today I've got Jerod Z, who is a very well-known Los Angeles dating coach, and I think he's going to provide you with a lot of very interesting information about I guess dating in LA and meeting girls and having success with women and all sorts of interesting things. So like I'm looking forward to hearing this. But Jerod, for people who haven't heard of you or don't know much about you, please give us a bit of a background and some introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Well, my name is Jerod, and I'm a dating coach here in LA. I could go on and on with all of this, but basically, I kind of accidentally fell into the date coaching industry. My initial book was a bunch of furiously written bullet points that I had planned on printing out and bitch smacking my friend with, because like he kept insinuating that I was lucky with girls because I was good looking, and I get that a lot in the pickup scene, like or in any dating scene. Like people are always like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to get advice from you because," and I like there was a lot that went into it. There was a lot that I had to learn, and people didn't understand that like it doesn't matter how you look if you don't get the core, the fundamental things down. You're not going to be attracted to women, and I didn't know that at the time, right? I didn't know how deep this went. Like I'd never heard of pickup. I never, I didn't know a dating coach was a job. Like I thought Hitch was just a movie, right? Like that's not a real job. And I was helping this 50-year-old admitted virgin. He was a virgin. He was 50 years old, and he was outside of my complex in Hollywood. And he kind of made this like snarky comment. And like I get a lot of snarky comments from people who are like, "Yeah, must be nice to be you." Yeah. And I was like, I could tell that he was like, implying that I had some form of privilege that he didn't. And I kind of sat him down and I said, "Hey, life is what you make it. Life is about you actively seizing opportunities." And I'm like, you could make your life anything you want it to be. And he kind of didn't believe that. So I broke down, systematically. I'm like, "Well, why are you single? Why have you never slept with a girl?" Okay, well, let's get to the root of that. Okay, well, and we went through a lot of different processes, and by the end of it, one of my friends was actually like a pickup guy, and I didn't know this, but he was also helping that same person, and I didn't know that person was like kind of bouncing around different places in Hollywood and gathering advice. So when that same friend came to me in private and was like, "Hey, like I didn't know you were a pickup artist." And he kind of did it all sly. He was like, "Hey man, I didn't know you were in the pickup community." And I just kind of looked at him and I was like what? Like, what are you talking about? Like I've never even heard of this. And we like I'd never heard of Neil Strauss. I did, I never read the game. Like a lot of the stuff that I was kind of teaching this guy was just self-development stuff that I'd learned over the years, and stuff that I had applied to women. And I think one of the biggest things was that I actually asked women. I think a lot of guys, like they're always like fighting this battle where they're trying to guess what women are thinking, and they're reading about what other men are saying about women, but like they're never actually like talking to women and asking women. And I see that almost as like, there's definitely like when guys are starting in this and they get to that level where like they're interacting with a lot of women, you'll see them jump like exponentially. Like it's one of those graphs that just shoots straight up. Because once they start interacting with women, they get around women, they start actually understanding like how women think and what they're actually saying and what they mean when they say the certain things that they say. And it's a lot more different than reading a textbook or something on the subject, and then trying to go out there and be like, I can relate to women, and you do something that you're like, I'm an alpha, and the girl's like, oh my god, that guy's such a douchebag, get him away from me. Yeah, so that's kind of like my history was like I fell into this. I was super like I used to call myself feminist friendly. Like I didn't know, like I had never been red pilled. I'd never read a piece of literature on the subject. So it was really interesting to me to have already built a brand. Like I already had 2 years of radio under my belt, I'd already interviewed a lot of people. Like I'd already done a lot of stuff. By the time I read my first, like by the time I read The Rational Male, or by the time I actually started like by the time I saw that there were two sides to this perspective, and I had kind of been feminized my whole life. So like it's a very weird transition because I'm not your average coach, right? Like most coaches kind of specialize in one thing and I'm still kind of figuring out what it is that I do best. I've been hired to help guys go out and meet girls and talk to girls and kind of like, gain confidence, just general, like what you would call pickup stuff, like just teaching guys how to talk to women in uncomfortable environments. And that's a lot of fun. I've been hired to help people win their exes back. And a lot of people in the pickup community get really like upset when they hear that. They're like, what? Who would want to do that? It's like, well, I don't know, man. Maybe if you love somebody and things ended badly and you don't know what happened and you want to either A, try and figure it out for closure, or B, you want to actually try and get the person back. I think a lot of people like the option, and there aren't a lot of people that do that. So, and a lot of times, people don't realize that like there are things that we can go into that if you want to know about that specifically. But I've been hired by women because, believe it or not, more women than ever are like trying to figure out why they can't find a boyfriend or why they're single. And they like this is new. This industry is huge. And if anything, I would say there's actually more business in coaching women. But then like it was my going into coaching women when I started to like analyze like what do women need to do that caused me to get red pilled. And then once I got red pilled, I was like, and I got upset and angry. And by that time, I was just so frustrated by it. I started making comedy videos. And to be honest, I have more fun making comedy videos than I do anything. Like I just legitimately love picking out a topic, going through, communicating, what I need to communicate, and throwing those out there. So I don't know specifically what the future is going to hold for this in my business, but I know that that's probably what I love doing more than anything is just the dating commentary.
Well, I want to follow up on a few of the things you've said. I guess in terms of your history, I guess I'd like to know more about how you, for yourself, acquired your knowledge and abilities with women. For example, you guys are hiring you to go out and help them pick up women. How did you learn in the first place to be good at that yourself?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like approach anxiety. I think everyone kind of struggles with that. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but just going out there, excuse me, I'm a little sick, but you just have to deal with the sniffles. You go out and you want to talk to a girl and you make this one girl like the hottest girl in the room. Like you finally find the one that you're like, ooh, that's the one. And, you psych yourself up for it and you get all nervous and you go over there and you fumble it. And then right after you fumble it, you've got like all of that, all that bad emotional energy inside you. So now you're freaking out and you go to the bar and you get a drink and it's a cycle. And like for me, I was always very nervous about these things, but I had this kind of like flip switch in me where I would go, no, screw that. I've got one life to live, man. Like get out there and do it. And I think with a lot of guys, like just like some general, like just general stuff, like, hey, don't go talk to that girl. Don't go talk to the girl that you really want. Like go talk to a bunch of people. In fact, get warmed up. Talk to the bouncer first, then talk to some of your friends, then talk to a complete stranger, then walk up to a girl that you're not attracted to and talk to her a little bit, and just get in the habit of being like socially capable. And then by the time that you get to talking to that girl, you're going to be switched on and your energy is probably going to override hers. And it's going to, you're not going to fumble over everything. And I think we were talking about social game a little earlier. And then, and that, I mean, aside from like the elevation of status and how that affects how women view you, just having like people around in your circle that would make you nervous to talk to anyways, like, famous people or semi-famous people or whatever. just having the ability to build rapport with them. Like I would tell guys to go out and like build rapport with the bouncer for a bit, you know, that can help you. You know, when the person, the most intimidating person in the room, you're going out and talking to them and you're making them like you and you're making them laugh and all that stuff. You can then take that energy. All of a sudden, that girl over there is not going to seem so intimidating. But
you know, I wanted also to follow up about the comment you made about you know, guys sort of, you know, and I've heard this before that, you know, a lot of certain coaches get their advice dismissed because they're attractive guys.
yeah,
And you know, you've got a guy come to you who's not attractive, or he's got some other shortcoming. Either he's too short, he's too fat, he's bald, he's old, whatever it is. And you know, these are, I guess, things that you haven't got those sticking points. What advice would you give for these guys? How do you deal with that?
well, I mean, so you have to look at it, and whether people believe me or not, this is just an objective truth. Most women go for guys that are average to slightly below average. Because of their own insecurities, they like somebody that they can control. They like, you know, they don't like having a guy that they have to worry about leaving them. They don't like having a guy that they're insecure about. So where a lot of guys think that it's necessarily an advantage to be good looking, it's funny because anybody that you can talk to about this subject who is good looking will tell you the exact same thing. Yeah, like I love it. Like I'm not mad about it, but there is definitely a flip side where people judge you. People are very snarky to you. I've heard this so many times, like verbatim. You know, I wouldn't consider dating you because I would worry too much about hanging on to you. And the funny thing was I was monogamous. Like, you know, I've always been like a girlfriend guy. Like I've always wanted to be in love. You know, that's like my end goal is to find that girl, not to go out there and play the field. And it's so funny because women, in their desire to make you out, paint you to be a player, almost inevitably make you into a player because nobody takes you seriously. Nobody thinks that you're going to be the guy that you can go home with, or the guy that they can go home with. No, people just assume so many different things about you. So when it comes to like men who are, you know, maybe they're a little bit more bald and maybe a little fatter, I'm like, dude, that's what they're looking for. Like a lot of women are just looking for that guy, maybe a little cleaned up and confident, you know, like, I mean, let's be honest. If he's got a good job, that immediately elevates her, you know, her attraction for him will go through the roof. But that's, I mean, that's just the way female psychology kind of works, right? Oftentimes they really don't want a guy who is too well done or too upscale or too good looking or too well dressed or any of those things. They fantasize about that, but that's not what they actually end up going for. So when it comes to guys that are like you know, they're at a disadvantage in the looks department, I'm like, dude, just clean up everything else that you can. Like really, because then you can elevate yourself. Like if you're clean and if you're well kept, you know, and then you've got your professional life together, like those two things, that's way more important than. And like I was just talking to one of my girlfriends the other day about this, and she was like, yeah, she's like, all good looking guys are broke. She's like, if they're not broke, they're not good looking. And it's like this thing, because obviously men have to be more competitive in that. Like, we go into that. It's a whole different thing. But like if you make stuff matter, it will matter. I have met guys who are excellent with women and they are not cute at all. And they pull more girls than I do. I mean, look, Owen Cook is a great example of this. The dude's not the best looking guy on earth. And, you know, he's a beast. And a lot of it has to do with confidence that he exhibits and relatability and the fact that he's just very, very strong. He's got a huge, very strong presence. And he's you know, incredibly socially engaged. And you know, he's learned how to keep people engaged. And I think that, like, you know, when it comes down to, like, if guys are on this right now and they're listening to this and they're like, oh, what do I do with my life? You know, if you're already in the mindset where you're like, oh, but I'm good looking, or oh, I'm not good looking. So, like, if you're trying to prove a point with that, you're already in the wrong headspace. What you absolutely need to do is sit down and find any excuse you can to prove that you're amazing, right? You need to be looking for opportunities to overcome your adversities. You can't be sitting there looking at like, oh, well, I've got this, these are all my problems. And if you're in that mindset, you're never going to get out. Like you have to fix that mindset. Say, hey, these are the things I have to deal with, but I'm going to push through. And I've even like guys in that environment will end up getting girls that they think like they're like, oh my god, she's the most amazing like thing ever. Like I never would have thought, you know, I could have ever gotten this girl, and that girl's thinking the same thing because nobody was really hitting on her either, right? So even at the maybe the top tier of what they're genetically compatible with, they're still going to find that kind of same person, right? That maybe somebody else wouldn't be interested in. They're gonna find the right person for them.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting hearing you being in LA, where you know, I guess for those of us who don't live there, presume that looks is paramount. You know, I've certainly heard what you said before, where you know, men who are not as good looking are desired by a lot of women who are afraid of what's the consequences of dating a good looking man. Um, you know, the problem is that most of the guys who aren't good looking all say that, you know, their efforts are just usually just don't work, and they complain a lot about that they feel that the shortcoming is in their looks.
I mean, look, I've seen a lot of these guys, and you know, from if you're talking to them on the internet or something like that, you could very easily say, oh, well, maybe it is that. But when you see them and you coach them in person, it becomes incredibly identifiable that it's not the fact that they're bad looking. It's the fact that they have a loser mindset. And when you have a winning mindset over a losing mindset, that is inherently attractive to women. It's not even about like, and yes, it is about the development and all of that stuff. But just like the fact that women can smell that on you, the fact that you're the guy that's going to get in there and you're going to take charge and you're really going to make the best of the situation. You know, I've met, like I said, like I've seen that. I've seen this. I've been out in the field and I've seen guys that just shouldn't. I've seen guys outgame me that just shouldn't have done it. Like it's like how did you beat me at that, right? But they had the confidence. They had the right attitude, and a lot of times women will feel more comfortable talking to a less attractive man versus. Like it's the same thing with guys. Like a lot of times guys won't go out and they won't like hit on the exact girl they want. They'll hit on a friend or they'll talk to a friend because their friend's less intimidating. Well, a lot of girls will do that too. And if you're the less intimidating one, but then all of a sudden you turn on this like, you know, this awesome charm in this game, and she sees that you have like, you know, a very engaging presence and you're really, you know, like not taking no for, well, I wouldn't say not taking no, but if you're really that person that's putting your excuses aside and really trying to shine and show your best light, you know, you're gonna you basically just took her, you know, she did that accidentally, right? She was just anchoring to you because it was more comfortable, because it was more safe, and you basically just used that against her and totally made her like you inadvertently. And that's the thing, like when you actually like. When you get down and you start talking to people about how they met their, you know, their significant other, it's very rare that people were like, oh, I saw her across the room and I went over there and got her. Like maybe guys will say that sometimes, but girls will always be like, I don't know, you know, I wasn't really attracted to him at first, and then you know, we just kind of fell in love. Like, I don't know. Like women never know. They never know why they ended up with this guy who's like a little bit not like, and it's almost like a constant. Women end up dating guys who are slightly below them. They end up dating guys who are slightly less attractive. They end up marrying guys that people are all like, huh, really, that guy? And almost like unilaterally, the response is always like, I don't know. There's just something about him. And it's like, that's how that whole scenario happens, right? It was because they weren't, you know, it's because they weren't threatening. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So when you have I guess a guy that you're taking out, tell us a little bit about what you do to help him change his mindset from a loser mentality, and what sort of things you, I guess, tell him to say, and how to develop his conversational skills?
Well, I can't teach you in a day how to do that, but because it's something that comes through experience, right? So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, okay, go find a martial art, do something that where you're getting punched in the face, and overcome that, and then go do something that terrifies you, like an acting class or an improv class, and go do that. Um, and those are the kinds of things like that will start to warm you up, right? And then I'll teach him, those are ways that he can start to build his confidence, where he can feel like, hey, not everything is impossible. This coach told me to do these things. I went and did these things. It wasn't as hard as it seemed. So if you get him in that mindset of like doing things that seem difficult, right? Like that's how I ended up here, was just doing things that seemed difficult. I was scared to do them, so I went and did them. I'm by no means like the most genius expert on dating advice. I was very, very afraid of certain things, and as a result, I dug into them because I didn't want to be controlled by fear. And trust me, like I get the same nerve. Like I am just as nervous and just as terrified when you go talk to a pretty girl, and I'm like, yeah. But I learned, like I hated that feeling. I hated that discomfort. So I was like, okay, well, how do we fix this? And then the other thing, like obviously go out there and like smash goals. That's a big one. But then like in the actual environment, breaking it down piece by piece, right? So problem talk girl, and like I was talking about earlier, it's like, okay, let's break this off in little pieces, little chunks, and let's do this one step by step. So I had guys that I would take them out and I would coach them, and to the point where I was like, why did you hire me if you're not going to say anything? And then I realized that like they literally couldn't talk to girls, so I made them, I spent the entire night making them talk to me, starting up a random conversation with me, and this particular guy had a very difficult time even doing that. And then I started, okay, so go up there and talk to that guy and make small talk with that guy. Just a dude, a straight dude. Like, and once he could sort of get that, then we would move up from there. But like I think that if you go out and you're just like dry or whatever, and you go out and you just get bombarded with the noise and the music and all the people and everything that's going on, like that'll shock your nervous system. And I think that's the reason why people end up drinking when they go out. It's the reason why they need to, because it's so uncomfortable in a club without alcohol. But if you warm yourself up before that, and you kind of prep yourself, like I know some people meditate before they go out, they do breathing exercises. One of the things is if you work out in the morning, I've never been a guy who worked out in the morning. I always worked out at night. And then I discovered that working out in the morning created this calm when I was out and about at clubs. And if I needed to be out and I had to coach somebody, it was much easier for me to get my bearings if I had already kind of exhausted a bunch of energy. So just little thing down piece by piece, get the person socially acclimated, put them in environments in which they are overcoming themselves socially. Being in that environment is very difficult, but like doing a stand-up comedy, like going to an open mic, is terrible. Putting them in and more of those comfort testing environments where they're going to start thinking like, oh wow, maybe this isn't so hard. Maybe I can actually do this.
If you had like certain times in your, I guess, history with women where you had personal aha moments, things that really sort of things dawned on you or became clear to you that were very insightful. Maybe you can share some of those.
Yeah. I was at this restaurant when I was younger, and this guy came up and he grabbed my ass, and I just turned around, like I spun around, and I was like, rude. Oh my God. I said the girliest thing that could have ever come out of my mouth. And like all of a sudden, that's where a lot of this difference in perspective came from, is because I always thought women, said the stuff that they said because they were women. And then I realized that there was an actual was when I turned around and I responded in the same verbiage that a woman would use in that situation. And I was like, excuse you, oh my God, you're so rude. And it was because like in that environment, like I was in West Hollywood. I didn't want to punch a gay guy, you know. That's like, and he did it in a way where I could tell like, hey, you shouldn't have touched me, but he didn't mean anything by it other than like an indication that he wanted to have sex. So to turn around and punch him was a kind of an extreme action there. So I said like I was just like, I can't believe you came up in my personal space and touched me, right? And then I was like, oh shit, man, guys do that to girls all the time. And then I was like, oh wow. So that was like one of the biggest aha moments, was that a lot of the things that men think women do because they're women, or they think that women are just like these completely different creatures. And you know, they are biologically different. Like I do understand the argument between biological differences and all that stuff. Like for sure, we're not just built on social constructs. Women are not the exact same thing as that. But there are some social constructs there, right? And when you start treating women more like people and not like sexual objects, I think that was when like I really started to get kind of effective with either relating to women, or you know, sleeping with women, or getting women to and I think for a lot of guys that it's just like, let's go smash, let's go fuck, like let's go get girls, let's go bag chicks. And it's almost like women are an event to them. Like women are you know, they're not people in the guys' heads. Like they're not human beings. They're just kind of objects to be kind of you know, dominated or you know, sexualized or whatever. And I found that when you actually relate to women and you don't sexualize them in such an aggressive way, they're way more apt and welcoming to be sexualized. Like it's such a weird paradox, but like, who would have thought treating women like people, like that actually works as effective game. That was one aha moment, man. Sorry, I'm rambling on. I'm on some cough medicine right now.
I know you mentioned, I think before we started, that you also have done some coaching with women. I'm curious, what have you learned from that you could sort of pass along to guys that give them some insight?
Well, so this is the problem. This is why I switched from coaching guys to coaching girls, because I felt a deep pain and compassion for men. And before, I think I was in the feminist boat where I felt kind of a disdain for men. Like, why can't you guys just get this shit right? And then I put a lot of work in, and then I was like, oh, because it's really complicated and difficult. So let me help you. I wouldn't say I ever felt a disdain, but like I was definitely on the side that like was really about changing men's behavior. Men are bad. They need to change. Okay, fix this. And like I have all this shit. Like I wrote an entire book, or a 300-page book on advice for men, stuff they can do with their fashion, fitness, hygiene, mindset, all this different stuff. When it came to women, there was like nothing. Like I was like, wait, what? And then I started to really kind of like research and dig deep into this, and I was like, wow, this is really one-sided. And then, you know, having coached women, now, you know, it's like when more women are single than ever before, and more women are complaining about the fact that they can't find the right guy. And I've heard it 1,000 times. It's like, why am I single? Why am I single? And women have always been selective, but women only ever had, you know, the ability to select maybe out of 4 or 5 guys of their tribe, right? And then once they got the guy, they could kind of clean the guy up, right? Like there's an adage that women civilize men. Like the men are kind of halfway between an animal and a woman. A woman's halfway between a man and a child, and that women sort of civilize. They create civility within the home, and they kind of clean men up. And then that was it. You know, like women had kind of had to take the most able-bodied man at the time, or whomever they were given, and they had to make the best of it. You know, so that's what they did. Well, now with the, men thought that with the invention of dating apps that it was just going to be this free for all, and they were just every guy was going to be out there just like, plowing through chicks, and the opposites happened. Right now, women have all of these different options, and nobody's ever good enough for them. They've become hyper selective. They've become just incredibly selective to the point where they have like a checklist of like 30 different things that some men aren't even capable of changing. Right? It's like what they want is they want someone who is not a male, who is a male, who doesn't exist. They want, and our obsession with fiction and perfect personality types. It's like we used to get our hands dirty. You met someone and you were attracted to them, and then you had your honeymoon phase, and through the course of that honeymoon phase, you kind of, fixed certain things, little behavioral things that were, but both parties, because they were so attracted to each other, were willing to kind of like fix things, change things, be a little bit more malleable. But now you're seeing people just like, it's like an iron curtain before they never even get a chance to meet. And it's really interesting because a lot of this is because of the online dating apps, right? But what's more interesting is that the online dating apps destroyed a lot, right? Like they've made people be able to be interconnected, but they've also made people super hyper selective, and with more options, they make less choices, which is odd. But even more than that is like these same people would be going out to a bar. Let's say out of 1 million people, a sample group, maybe 50,000 of those people go out every single night, and then maybe another 100,000 of those people go out, maybe once a week or twice a week, and then maybe another 100,000 of those people go out, every couple weeks, and then the rest of them basically they all rotate going out maybe once a month. But out of let's say 500,000 people, if they're going out once a month, you're going to have a pretty healthy dating pool. So you might have people out that you could bump into, run into, talk to in person, and win over that you wouldn't have, you wouldn't have had the opportunity to online, because now she's just looking at your appearance. She's looking at the fact that she's got 1 million inappropriate messages in her inbox. So women have become like incredibly hyper selective because they just have this gush of attention all the time. She might not have been getting attention. She could have been one of those girls that went out to a bar and nobody was even talking to her, and she did that 4 or 5 times. And then this other guy comes along and he's all, he doesn't feel good about himself, and he goes out and he makes that leap and he talks to her, and it's like, this is the first time that she's ever been talked to. So he thinks she's the most beautiful girl in the world, and she's just really happy for the attention. And then they start to hit it off and get to know each other and like each other. And this was how the dating world worked. And then now with technology, it's like it's just spun everything. So when it comes to like the advice that I have to give women, I'm like, yo, man, like women are much higher neuroticism. They will pick themselves apart to death, and they're doing that same thing with men. They're creating an atmosphere. It's like I myself have went out on dates with girls on Tinder, and had them just like I literally had to tell one girl, I'm like, if I'm not good enough for you, no one is. Like you, I know why you're single now. It's because you're an asshole. And I'm seeing this more and more with women. So I'm not entirely sure what the advice is, other than like go out and meet people before you make decisions about them. Go out on a date with somebody and meet them before you make decisions about them. And then, be happier. Like, I feel like women are just waiting for men to fuck up. They're just like, I know it's a terrible thing to say to women, to be like, smile more, but that works both ways. And it's like, if a guy goes out and he's got a disdain towards women, a woman's going to pick that up. If women goes out and she has a disdain towards the men are going to pick that up. They're not going to feel liked, and they're not going to exhibit their best selves. So for a lot of women, I'm like, how about you hit on the guy? Like, that's the main advice. Like, if you like somebody, go talk to him. And even if you don't like him, why don't you just be more social? Through feminism, we've finally got it to where most men are scared to talk to women now. Most men are scared 100% to talk to women. So you got what you guys wanted, to not be hit on all the time. So now, why are you complaining you're single? Why don't you go out there and talk to the guys? So women have this double standard where, they didn't want to be a hit on. They wanted to be respected. They didn't want to, they didn't want guys to kind of cross that line. And then now they're like, why aren't any guys talking to me? It's like, what do you think? Right? Why do you think? Because you told them not to. You told men that it's not appropriate to hit on you. You shamed men from learning dating advice and pickup so they became better at talking to you. Pretty much anything men do to relate to the opposite sex, women find a way to shame and label and create like a negative. And maybe not all women. A lot of women are great with it. But the loud minority are often the ones that control, the cultural mindset. So like, I'm just like, my thing is my goal right now isn't even with dating advice. Like I'm not truly interested in sort of like helping individual women. My goal right now, everything that I'm doing is basically fighting this culture war between like what women kind of inadvertently did and didn't realize. And like, this is what I'm doing is really just kind of like hitting this part of the culture war head on.
I think it's a fundamental problem in that first thing usually that men learn about women is don't listen to what they say, pay attention to what they do.
Yeah.
One of the, I guess I had a big lesson probably about 8-9 months ago. I met this woman off an online site, and her pictures were okay, but when I met her, she was probably one of the most beautiful women I've ever met in my life. And we're sitting there, and she tells me how guys never hit on her. And I says to her, I'll bet you that's not true. And she looked at me like I'm calling her a liar. And I says, I'll bet you you get hit on all the time. It's just you're not getting hit on by the guys you're interested in.
Yeah, exactly.
And she goes, you're right. But the corollary to that is that she already knew before the guys talked to her that she was interested in those. So
yeah.
So they know a lot more than they want to admit to themselves.
Oh yeah, women are so full of double standards, man, and it pisses me off to the point where once I started seeing this exact, like when women are like, why don't I have any good guys? And I'm like, you got 40, and they're like, where? And I'm like, have you looked in the friend zone lately? And they're like, ew, not them. And I'm like, what is wrong with them? Right? Like these a lot of them have great jobs, a lot of them are really nice guys, a lot of them will love you forever and ever and ever. It's just like, oh, because he doesn't have the right mixture of I'm a dick and I don't want you, and I also like because he can't supply enough excitement and chase for you. That I mean, like, but then in the same sentence, all you'll do is complain about the frustrating dickhead men that you date, and it's like that bothers me to such a degree that's why I make videos now. Like that's what got me into comedy. It's like women will say one thing and then they'll do something completely different. And I don't think it's on men anymore. I don't think that it's on men. I think for, women will go, like there are so many different things, that, especially with all this like mansplaining stuff and manspreading. It's like feminism has gotten to a place where it's like, it's just not okay to even be a male. Like, it's not okay to be a man. It's not okay to have a penis, let alone like develop yourself as a male into what women are attracted to. And I think that the fight now isn't with just helping helping men navigate that. I think that some of us need to stand up and like tell these women off and really like stand up against this tide of terrible advice. And I mean, they're destroying the fabric of our society right now. And, they're going to destroy the nuclear family. They're going to destroy, the birth rates in this country. And I guess we are overpopulated. That is a problem. But it's like, yeah, but what is the end result of that? To where we just don't talk to each other anymore? And the thing is like a lot of women are sort of easily influenced, and when you have like a small but very loud minority of ultra diehard feminists which can't make up their mind, right? Like, of course, any female organization, you would find a bunch of women who they segment out and they create all these different little segments of it, and then they all infight with each other. So now there are different kinds of feminists, right? There's like the ones who include the trans people, and there are ones that don't include the trans people, and there's always like little different sections. But a lot of women are letting them kind of have their way with the world because they think that it's rooting out the bad behavior of men, like this #MeToo movement. And while I understand that these are kind of necessary things, like we do need to, men have been guilty of using power to get things. We also need to acknowledge the fact that women respond to men with power. So it's always been unilaterally reinforced within our culture, within our society, to gain power. Like how do you take an ugly man, like let's say, because manscaping, all that stuff, like that stuff is maybe new, right? 100 years or so. Like the idea of maybe elevating the way you look in order to attract women as a male. The only way to do that pre 100 years ago was to elevate your status. So status has been built into our evolutionary biology for thousands and thousands of years, millions of years, you could argue, that like women are attracted to high status, high value males. I mean, hypergamy, right? So it works. It works, and we see it work. We see it work over and over and over again. And then now, in the same sentence, women are trying to destroy the most attractive quality in men, a quality in which they force men to become. And they wonder why. Like there was a study that was done the other day. It said women are making more money than men for the first time in history, and it's a huge problem. And it went into the root cause of this is that women do not want equals. They do not want equals. They want a man who is better than them. And I ran this by a bunch of people. Everyone kind of agrees. Like, even in this article, like it was met without a lot of criticism. It was that women generally want a man who is if they're making $100,000 a year, he needs to be making $150,000 a year. Like they won't accept somebody who they love, who loves them, who will make $80,000 a year. Like he has to be better. He has to and have some sort of like higher status than they do, right? So it's the whole thing is yeah. The whole thing is crazy.
Well, in terms of being practical about it, what would you tell guys how to deal with this?
I would say, like, if you can, just go back to old school chivalry, and have an attitude about it that's like, fuck you, I don't care what you think. I'm gonna open this door for you because I'm, you can say you were raised that way or whatever, but because like go back to being a classical male, and it shocks people. I think that is one of the more effective ways. Like, obviously, don't be like too obtuse about it, where you're like throwing your jacket down over puddles. But I think and hold your ground. If you're arguing a point, be open to having that point be challenged, and be open to having that point be wrong. But there's so many like wishy-washy weak men out there now. Men that they don't know who they are. They have no fundamental grounding. They're not rooted in anything, and they're very deliberately open to anything a woman says because they're trying to get laid. So it's like the man thing switched, where we no longer have strong men that women gravitate towards. We have these weak men that are out there kind of saying whatever women want to hear, so that women will jump on that, so they think that women will be interested in them. And you're seeing more and more men become more and more like women, and women don't end up with those men. Most women think those men are disgusting. Concentrate on self-development, concentrate on smashing your goals, like professionally or anything that you're doing in life. Like, don't be afraid to be a man. And being a man doesn't mean that you treat women badly, or that you're a misogynist, or, any of those things. Being a man just simply means like you're enveloping your masculinity, and you're not going to apologize for it. You know, go out there and play sports. It's been scientifically proven that even if you are not the type of person, let's say a Chad, you're not genetically whatever, that if you start doing those activities, the structure, the neurons in your brain, your endocrine system, everything will change, and you'll start producing more testosterone. A great book on that was Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, where he talks about the lobsters in the beginning, and he talks about how lobsters that win tend to continue to win, and they grow stronger and bigger and better at things. And lobsters that lose, they grow weaker and more frail and this and that. So I'm always like, dude, find something that first with guys, find something you're good at. If you're really, really good at something, like find something you're good at and get really, really good at that thing, right? And then I want you to carry the fact that you're really good at that with you when you're going out, when you're doing other things, and remember that you're really, really good at something. And then maybe you can start to transition some of the energy into this other thing. And I think that men really are kind of in this shell shock, paralyzed state of being, and they don't know where to step and where to move and what to do. And being a man doesn't mean being an asshole, right? It just means being okay with being masculine. And I think even in the pickup community, a lot masculinity. Like a lot, you hear about all the time. It's this obsession with chads and good-looking dudes. And I'm in a lot of these forums, and people are like, you know, all they're doing is talking about people who are genetically superior than them and how they can't do anything because that guy's genetically superior. And I go over to their profile and I'm like, dude, you live in a fucking basement. You play video games all day. You're 40 pounds overweight and you don't have a fucking job. I'm like, it's not that chads are beating you because they're better looking. It's that chads have a fucking job, right? Like there are a lot of different factors, and men are choosing to only focus on one factor. It's like, of course, you're not going to get a girlfriend if you sit in your basement and drink Slurpees and eat nachos and complain about the government. Sorry, went on a little rant there.
There's you'd mentioned at one point that you coach guys about, I guess, or I assume maybe women as well, about how to get their exes back. Before I ask you about that, I'm curious about how you got your own experience in that in the first place.
Well, like I said, I was always a girlfriend kind of guy, you know, and like I've run into relationships where I've been with a girl who I loved, who started to get like a sense that I wasn't going to, like, women are just like create and be like, oh, well, I think you're going to leave me, so I'm going to break up with you before you break up with me. That happened to me a couple of times where and maybe it was that I was shooting low, and maybe it was that I was insecure, so I was shooting low, and they knew that, so they were like, oh, as he starts getting more confident, I'm going to have to worry about this in the future, so they'll break up with you because they don't want to be hurt in the first place. And not saying I was blameless either. Sometimes the girls that broke up with me, they broke up with me for good reasons. But, you know, I really wanted that relationship. I wanted some of those girls back, and I didn't want to break up. And I don't know what they were picking up on, but that's not what I wanted at all. So I became very creative, and I figured out, you know, different ways to get them back. And then some of them I got back, and some of them I would get back and I'd lose again. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I once I took a Tony Robbins course, I understood what was happening. And it's that, you know, you can be in a relationship, right? You'll be in a relationship, and maybe you've got all 6 human needs, just like firing on all cylinders. You know, especially most times, one of my girlfriends was telling me the other day, a friend who was a girl, she was saying that men are only ever they're most attractive right when you meet them, and then when you're breaking up. And that kind of goes that lens, or I'll say it again, they're only ever as attractive as right when you meet them or right when they're breaking up. And it's because men will put on their best show to get you, and then they'll put on their best show to get you back, right? They won't or put on their best selves. They'll be working on everything that they can do. What happens with people in relationships is there are 6 human needs. Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. Most times when people end up in relationships, they've got most of those needs down or some of those needs down. And then either through the course of the relationship, they start to lose those things, or they had bad codependent habits or patterns or whatever. You know, things like abandonment issues. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that can happen, and they lose the person. And when they lose the person, they have no idea what happened, right? So I answered that question. And I'm going right into the second one. It's like what you do. Is that okay, or did you have like? Would you
No,
want
that's
to segue?
fine. That's fine.
Um, so a lot of people are like left scratching their heads, like they have no idea what happened. They have no idea. They're like, you know, I don't understand. Like I had this guy call me up once. I'll just give you an example of like one client. I had the guy call me up once, couldn't figure out why he cheated on his girlfriend, and I was like, I'm just staring at him. And I'm like, what kind of dumb ass thing is that to say? Like, oh man, I don't know why I did it. And I started to actually like sit down with him, and we went through what was going on. And when we got deeply into his relationship with his mother married a con man, and that guy had, basically like warped his mother's ability to think or to love her children. So she chose the con man over her own kids, and this created this deep-seated fear of abandonment in him. And I forget what had happened with this particular girl. They were married for 7 years, but something happened that triggered him to freak out, where he thought she was going to leave. So he didn't know. It blindsided him that he didn't even know he had all these abandonment issues. From the outside, it would just look like two really loving people. Like he always wanted to be around her. He was a great husband. He was just constantly with her 24/7, to the point where that became very needy, right? So I forget what happened, but like something happened and she pulled away, and then he became more needy, and then that smothered her, and then she ran further and further and further, and then finally, like almost out of like a desperate need to feel loved and connected, he cheated on her. And long story short, we went down through this whole like rabbit hole of his past history and all of the stuff, and we figured out that he was missing Tony Robbins' need for connection, right? He had a problem with that. And then he also wasn't taking care of any of his goals in his life, and that was causing his girlfriend to not value him, not find him as attractive. So she wasn't she didn't find him attractive because he wasn't really like making any moves. He thought that she kept encouraging him to go to the military because she didn't want to be around him, but she was encouraging him to go to the military because she wanted him to be better for himself so that she could find him attractive. He was slowly like slipping away. She was slowly becoming less and less attracted to him. Well, as things progressed, we end up finding out that we ended up doing all this like super high tech shit. I can't really talk about it, but we ended up finding out that the girl had been cheating on him for like almost 7 years with like a whole bunch of different guys. And he hired me to win her back. And we started to do that like I did. I showed him basically how to like kind of manipulate the situation to gain her interest, how to not text her, or how to be more short with your text. Like there's a whole bunch of like little things that you can do that kind of change somebody's, like they're subconsciously used to you. And if you continue to exhibit the same patterns and habits, they will see the situation as the same. But the second you start to disrupt that pattern, they go, oh, well, what's happening? Am I actually going to lose this person? Is he not focused on me now? And then, so once we gained her interest and we kind of like I taught him how to basically get back in the door with her, we actually started investigating and figuring out what was happening. And I could tell with some of the information that I was being given that something wasn't adding up. Something was wrong. And we dug down, and we ended up finding out that she'd been cheating on him for basically the entire time that they were married, and he gave me the biggest thank you, and he left for the military, and but he got his closure, right? Because that guy would have been kicking himself in the ass for the rest of his life, thinking that it was his fault that he cheated on this girl, and that he ruined this. He ruined the love of his life, and she left, and he's never going to get her back. And now he has full closure. He feels better about the situation. for a lot of people, it ends up being closure. For a lot of people, it's not. Sometimes they don't get the girl back, or get the guy back. But I think a lot of people really hate that deep-seated feeling of regret and pain that comes with losing someone that they really love. And I don't think most people are cut out to be kind of a player or be out there, sowing their seeds, so to speak. Most people are in relationships. They want to be in relationships. Their end goal is relationship. So that tended to be more effective and lucrative for me to get into. And it's just really interesting. It goes way more into like the human psychology. It's not as fun as going out and like coaching guys and helping them overcome their insecurities. A lot of times I just act like a wingman. I'll go out. We'll repeat a couple patterns of show them some stuff to do, and just little tips, little things that you can do here and there that basically like open the door for conversation with a girl and how to follow up and how to close and all that stuff. And that stuff's fun. But what people, I mean, a lot of guys aren't like super willing to pay for that. I think pickup had its wave, and that wave is kind of, or at least they're not trying to hire me to do it. But I think when it comes to like relationship coaching, like that industry is thriving, and there are more people that are interested in figuring out what went wrong or what's going wrong, or if a loved one is cheating on them, than they are, figuring out how to get back up off. Get back up on the horse.
Have you had a lot of successes getting exes back?
Yeah. I mean, I can always get people in the door, and that's the hard part. Is like when people hire me, they've already dug that hole, right? Like people don't like search the internet and think like, oh, this person looks like they're gonna break up with me. I might need a dating coach in the next couple days, right? No. They call me up after they've already went through the fight and the breakups and the throwing their phones through the walls. And by the time they call me, the person has blocked them on all social media. The person has blocked their phone number. The person is like this guy, you're done. Like you're gone. Don't ever talk to me again. I hate you. That's when people find me. And I have to dig them out of that hole and then show them, basically create opportunities for them to get back in contact with the person. And then once they're back in contact with that person, really coach them on how to impress on her psychology that this is a different scenario. So we're going to go through all of the different things. We're going to find out what the real problem was, why the breakup happened, what caused this. And we're going to make sure that he actually wants her back. I'm going to give him a full overview of what this process is going to entail. And then we dig in. What ends up happening, I'd say more. So I can always open the door with almost anyone, but what ends up happening, I wouldn't say a good portion of the time, but like a good enough portion where it's relative or relevant. Sorry, a good enough portion where it's relevant is the guys will work really, really hard. They'll get the girl back, or they'll open the door. They'll start to get really excited. And then they'll go through their ups and downs, right? Like where they kind of get her back and then she drops off. They kind of get her back and then she drops off. And then they finally, after a couple months, get her back. And they're like, oh my God, yes, we're having sex again. We love each other. Oh my gosh. And something will happen. Or the guy will just like she'll start to have buyer's remorse, right? And then she'll pull away. But because he got the thing, now he feels entitled to it and he becomes resentful. And this happens with girls and guys, so I'm just using guys as an example. But, then that person gets pissed off because they're like, dude, I worked for 3 months. I hired a professional coach. Like, I spent all this fucking money and all this time, and you're not, like, they start to view the person that they're with as less valuable because they're like, I am working with every amount of energy I have to get you back, and you're not even taking this seriously. And then they start to get resentful. So that's like the biggest enemy in that is resentment. Is once we get to that place, like getting them over that hump of resentment, making sure that I vet them beforehand to make sure that they love the girl enough to when they get to that place, they'll actually make it through. If they don't get her back fully, like get her back, it's usually because they dropped all of the work that I told them to do, and they go right back into the same pattern of behavior. So they'll do all this stuff, they'll impress, everything's new, and then they get her and they go right back to doing the same stuff, and they make the exact same mistake. That's like, those are the two scenarios in which it doesn't really work, when they create resentment or they go back to their old habitual ways of being. But I mean, I have a greater success than that than I probably should, right? Like, like, I don't know anybody else that's doing that.
Well, look, I think you've given us some pretty good insight into what you're doing and types of ways that you help guys and also women today. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how someone can find out more about you, what you're coaching, what other products you have, books. Tell people what they can do to follow up on this.
Okay, cool. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I am a little sick. So if the interview is me congested and sniffing and I'm on a bunch of cough medicine, so I hope that I'm enunciating properly and that I make sense through this interview. If you feel a little dumb at the moment, you can find me at modernmaleinc.com. That's modern MALEINC.com. And that's where you can find any of my interviews and all my coaching stuff. You can find my book on Amazon, but there's a link on that website. So it's just modern MALEINC.
Well, that's I think that if you're going to have some guys, especially in LA, follow up on you, and hopefully guys got a lot out of this, and look forward to maybe having another conversation with you soon.
The industry is changing, and I think that in the future, a big thing that, like, I'm kind of like, I'm still a coach. Like, I am a coach. That is my day job. But I'm still exploring different facets of this business and what I like to do better or what I like to do worse. And, like, coach women, I've coached men, I've helped people get relationships. I'm starting to see matchmaking and international matchmaking. I think it's going to be the future. Because with international matchmaking, you have different cultures, and a lot of the problems that are in one culture might not be in another culture. So I've been working with this matchmaker in China. I've been working with various matchmakers, and I'm seeing people have a lot of great success matching American men with either Chinese or Latin American women, because they're not dealing with a lot of the same, feminism hasn't taken its hold and strangled the life out of the dating industry down there yet, or in these other places. And the matchmaking services are they're really neat, and I'm exploring them now. So I can give you guys more insight into that as time goes on. But, like, there's a new dating app called it's called Cove, and it's got a really unique spin on escalation within an app and teaching people basically how, like, or not, I shouldn't say it's teaching them, but creating relatability very, very quickly. Like, you go from text to audio notes to videos very, very quickly. I work with a matchmaking company out of China called Skylove World, and that's really interesting, where you can go on and you can meet women all over China who are interested in meeting American men. I think that those kinds of things we're going to see more and more and more of it, and I think that's going to be really like neat thing for the future. Like, all hope is not lost,
Do you think that might start replacing online dating in a sense, more matchmaking?
Well, yeah, I mean, women over in America have grown incredibly entitled and incredibly difficult, and it's I think people in general have grown entitled and difficult, but a lot of women have become very, very picky and very obnoxious and difficult to deal with. And it's like you introduce her to 1,000 guys, and she's gonna be like, "Well, it's not my fault that he's not XYZ." Like they take no responsibility. Like, even me, I'll tell people straight up, I'm like, look, I actually, a lot of people don't meet my standards. I acknowledge that. I'm picky. Okay, I'm picky. It's my fault. Women won't acknowledge that. They'll never take responsibility for that. They're just like, no, ew, everyone's gross. But then you go over to China or to Latin America and you meet some chick who's like they don't have any of those hangups, man. They don't have any of them. They're just so nice. They're ready and willing to interact, and they still have a lot of that like feminine energy where they don't like men to be, you know, girly, wishy-washy men. They want men to be men, and they want to be women, and they're happy with the dynamic between men and women. And it's like it's such a breath of fresh air when you meet women who are like, oh wow, you're not like super hung up on a whole bunch of cultural stuff that doesn't matter. Oh, okay, great. Like, you know, they're just girls, and it's like, oh fuck, I missed you.
I think there's a lot of concern from guys here that a lot of these women are just looking for an immigration ticket, though.
There's a concern with that, but like, so the company that I work with out of China, Skylove World, that the women hired them because the men in China are there's this thing where the men in China are, I guess you could say that they just believe that like women's only purpose is to like have kids, right? Very kind of stereotypical patriarchal, whatever. And they made a guy who's even like remotely like, oh yeah, women can have jobs, like or should have jobs or whatever. And they're like, you know, the women that use that site are women who put their careers first. China is about 50 years behind America in terms of like that kind of cultural. So it's a lot like the 1950s culturally, where it's like when a man meets a 35-year-old woman who has a job and makes $100,000 a year, he's like, what? No, women shouldn't work. Like, I had no idea this was a thing over there. But it's so funny because a lot of the women on those sites make more money than men. They make more money. They make way more money than the men. Like, some of them are millionaires, and they just want a guy who doesn't mind the fact that they make a lot of money, and they want to meet a guy for love. And also they like white guys. Like, there are a lot of white guys over in China. I just got back. I was like the only white person there. But you know, it's I'm seeing more and more that women are 1,000 times more apt to pay for matchmaking services. I worked with a show on E and a show on Bravo. Patty Stanger, millionaire matchmaker, I've talked to her a bunch too. Women are paying to meet guys. Like, obviously these are ones in America, so that you're going to go into the same problems with the pickiness. But women are paying. A lot of the women are paying in China. The women are paying in Latin America. It's not to get green cards. It's not to marry you to get citizenship. A lot of them just genuinely are interested in finding a guy and just getting married. And a lot of them would prefer it if the guy moved to China or the guy moved to Latin America to be with them, you know.
So have you met any women that way?
Well, I work for the companies. I can't really talk to the girls on the website. But I met girls here in Los Angeles that I thought that they were interested in getting green cards, and it turns out that they were actually just really interested in me or getting married or whatever. I wouldn't believe it, but that's how women's brains work a lot of the time. Like, they really don't go into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to use this guy for a green card. Like, they really, even if they need a green card, they'll come over here and they'll try and find a guy, and they'll try and find a guy that when they get married to him, that's the guy that they're marrying. Like I would think, and or if they do get married for green cards, they're like, there's no romantic connection whatsoever, and it's just a business deal. But I've seen it more often than not where like people end up marrying for love. It's not actually for green cards, like because they want to stay here, because they want that person to stay here or whatever. The other thing is, you know, you got to remember that a lot of those other cultures are not sped up on American laws. You know, they don't necessarily know that, like, if they marry you, they can take half your money. Like some of them might know that, but not all of them are on the up and up with that. So like I had to explain that to these Chinese women. They were like, why are men so scared to get married in America? And I'm like, because our legal system has hogtied men and it takes all their rights. It's, it's a very destructive system. There's almost no upside for a man to marry a woman. There's no upside for men. We're basically assuming all the risk. And if it doesn't work out, we pay for it forever, for the rest of our lives. And I've met so many guys in their 50s and 60s who got out of bad marriages. And I mean, this man spent his whole life working and building his empire or whatever. And now he is decimated because, he met the wrong woman and they didn't get a prenuptial agreement. And, women will be the first to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. But it's true. It's like marriage doesn't benefit men. It doesn't benefit men whatsoever. It's like a legally binding contract that's betting against myself. I'm like betting against myself. So not every other country has the same laws, right? So like they don't even know about those things. Like China, dude, China's crazy. You can't even use Google over there. How are they gonna know what like things are? I mean, don't get me wrong. Some things are different. Some things are very, very the same. But yeah, when I explained this to all these Chinese women, and I was like, hey, yeah, the reason that guys don't want to marry you is because they're terrified that you're going to use them A for your green card or for a green card, and then B that you're going to come over here, you're going to break up with them, and you're going to steal half their money. That's like the biggest problem that I've had with even recruiting for this app, because I'm like, I'll be interacting with guys and I'll say, hey, go to this app, and they're like, is it a scam? And there are companies like that will literally hire people that aren't even real to talk to these guys, to pump money out of them, and it's like you're fucking talking to some person at a click farm. So like it's the amount of like shady stuff that men have to avoid, the amount of like traps and tricks and stuff that people have like kind of played on men and use their sex drive against them is unfathomable. So I get why guys are really nervous about this. But from what I understand, from what I've personally like talking to the girls over there, they had no idea. They had no idea that a woman could do that, could take 50% of the guy's money. They had no idea that our legal system worked the way it did. That was the farthest thing from their mind. They were like, we want to get married because we love. Like that was it. They were like, love. Like, but for Chinese women, they're not really like, it's not okay to be having sex if you're not married. So they're really monogamous. So they're like, let's get married so we can spend the rest of our life together and fuck like a lot, That's kind of their thinking.
What do you tell your women clients who are focused on finding a guy to get married in today's environment?
What's that?
What do you tell your women clients who you coach who are looking to get married in today's environment and in the way the way the world is today?
I tell them to look in the friend zone.
Yes, you did say that. That's right.
Yeah, I'm like when, especially when women are like, "Oh, am I single?" Or, well, here's the thing: when people are just desperate to get married, I immediately question what the hell your intentions are, right? I want to get married. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? I want to get married. Like, do you mean you want to find somebody that you love, that you want to spend the rest of your life with? Or are you just talking about the fact that you physically want to attach yourself to somebody, and maybe it's because you don't want to deal with it anymore, or maybe it's because the idea of marriage has become such a fantasy to you that you're not actually thinking about the reality of it, right? I think it's every little girl's dream to get married, been pushed into our culture. So that's when women are like, I want to get married. That's the first thing I say to them. Like, what do you mean? It's different in different cultures. And like, I when I see these matchmakers, because this is all new to me, going over there, like I went over there to really like learn about culture and stuff. And, these were women who were meeting men who the men spoke English, the women spoke Chinese, and they would just just get married within 2 months of meeting each other. And they kept doing it. You know, I was like, what? What? Who does that? And you start to realize that like there are cultural things that are missing, or I should say cultural things that we have existing that like when they're missing in another in another kind of relationship, like the hit rate goes up. It's weird. It's weird. So now it makes me question and wonder like what was going on in the 50s when people were getting married left and right. Like were they really like interesting compatibility, or was it really just kind of like a social norm that like you found a good girl, you know, go out there and find you a good girl. And you know, it's like for women it was like go out there and find you a good man. And literally like the first person that you met that you liked having sex with, you know, you married, and that was it, you know. And it's like kind of that old school mentality over there. And in I don't know about Latin America, I haven't spent too much time over there, but China, it's very like traditional.
Well, I think we've had some interesting comments
Yeah,
going back and forth here. But look, I wanted to thank you for taking the time with me tonight, and I think the guys will get a lot out of this, and I think it's going to be an enjoyable listen for most of them, and hopefully I'll have some questions for you from them
I hope
shortly.
so. I feel like I rambled on quite a bit, man. I think the cough medicine or whatever, but
I wouldn't worry about it.
I hope I'm making enough sense. I didn't like I'm tracing it back and I'm like, God, did I really answer his question specifically enough, or did I just go on these rants?
Well, we'll have to do this another time when you're feeling a little bit more normal, I guess, not
Yeah,
sick.
yeah, maybe we'll do it at a better time for both of us.
All right, so I'll just say goodnight for the moment, and we'll continue this hopefully another time soon.
All right, sounds good.